All right, let's dive into one of the biggest mysteries of the digital age. Who is the person, or maybe the group, that created Bitcoin and then just vanished into thin air? Let's get into it.
Okay, get a load of this number. Imagine a fortune this big, completely untouched. It belongs to someone who, for all we know, doesn't even exist. We're talking about a stash of around 1.1 million Bitcoins, mined right at the very beginning of the network, that have just been sitting there, gathering digital dust for over a decade. It's a ghost's treasure, and it's worth an absolutely staggering amount of money.
So, yeah, that brings us to the ultimate question. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? It's this mysterious, pseudonymous name behind a global financial revolution who then just ghosted the entire world. To even begin to understand who this phantom could be, we've got to look at the why. And the answer isn't really about money. It's rooted in a movement that started decades ago with a group of people who truly believed that code could change the world.
You see, long before Bitcoin, you had the Cypherpunks. These are brilliant cryptographers, activists, and tech visionaries who saw the early internet as a new frontier for freedom. Their core belief that we could use powerful code to build tools for privacy, to resist surveillance from governments and corporations.
I mean, this line from their manifesto, it says it all, doesn't it? This wasn't just a philosophical debate for them. It was a call to action, a call to build. And it's this exact ethos that created the perfect breeding ground for an idea like a currency that nobody could control.
But here's the thing. Satoshi didn't just pull Bitcoin out of a hat. He, she, or they stood on the shoulders of giants. As you can see here, there were all these crucial building blocks already in place. You had Adam Back's Hashcash, which gave us the idea of proof of work. Now, proof of work is basically just a way to make computers solve a really hard math problem to prove they did some work, and that's what secures the whole network. Satoshi's true genius was seeing how to fit all these brilliant but separate ideas together into one working system.
And then, bam! January 3rd, 2009. The Bitcoin network sparks to life. And embedded forever in that very first block of transactions is this headline, pulled straight from a London newspaper. This wasn't just a timestamp. Nope. This was a statement, a direct shot at the traditional financial system that was crumbling during the 2008 crisis.
So who is behind this? Well, while Satoshi's real identity was a closely guarded secret, their work wasn't. For 2 years, Satoshi was active, leaving behind this trail of digital breadcrumbs for us to follow. So, let's follow him.
Right off the bat, the first big clue is the language. All over his posts and emails, Satoshi consistently used British English. We're talking spellings like color with a U and slang like bloody hard. This immediately points to someone from the UK or at least somewhere in the Commonwealth. But, and this is a big but, when you map out when Satoshi was online, things get weird. There's this massive, consistent gap in activity. Almost no posts or code check-ins between 5 a.m. and 11 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Now that's a pretty strange time for someone in the UK to be completely offline. It is, however, a perfectly normal sleep schedule for someone living in the US.
So you've got this total contradiction, right? On one hand, you have all this linguistic evidence pointing to someone British. But on the other, you have a digital footprint that screams American. This has led a lot of investigators to believe that Satoshi was deliberately planting false flags, using one identity to mask another. The plot thickens. Okay, forget what Satoshi wrote for a second. The most powerful clue is actually baked right into the blockchain itself. Researchers discovered this really unique fingerprint in the way the earliest Bitcoin blocks were mined, a signature that no one else had. They call it the Satoshi pattern.
This pattern points to a hoard of about 1.1 million Bitcoin that were almost certainly mined by Satoshi. And what's just mind-blowing is that 99.9% of those coins have never, ever moved. For over 15 years, while this fortune exploded to billions of dollars, the creator never cashed in. That level of discipline is just, wow. It tells you this probably wasn't about getting rich. It also gave the network incredible trust. By never selling, Satoshi proved he believed in the project's long-term survival.
All right. With all this evidence on the table, it's time to line up the usual suspects. Over the years, a handful of names have consistently topped the list of who Satoshi might be.
First up, you've got Finney, a true cypherpunk legend. He was the first person other than Satoshi to run the software, and he was the recipient of the very first Bitcoin transaction ever. Plus, his writing style is a very close match. The biggest piece of counter-evidence? Well, We have his emails, which show him having conversations with Satoshi seemingly as two different people. Then there's Szabo. This guy is a huge suspect for a lot of people, and for good reason. Years before Bitcoin, he designed something called BitGold, which was incredibly similar in concept. The parallels are just undeniable. But, for his part, Szabo has repeatedly and very clearly denied being Satoshi.
And then, there's the tragic but really compelling case of Len Sassaman. He was another brilliant mind in the cryptography world, a fierce advocate for privacy. He tragically died in July of 2011, just a few short months after Satoshi sent their final email and vanished forever. The timing is just chilling. Okay, so where there's a mystery worth billions, you're bound to get some imposters. It's just inevitable. A few people have publicly claimed to be Satoshi, but so far, none of them have been able to provide the definitive proof.
And the most notorious pretender by far has to be Craig Wright. This guy spent years claiming he was Satoshi, even taking people to court over it, but it all came crashing down in 2024. After a major lawsuit, a UK High Court judge ruled that Wright had engaged in forgery on a grand scale and was, quote, not Satoshi Nakamoto. Case closed.
So look, we might never know for sure who Satoshi was, but we do know one thing. Their disappearance was completely intentional, and you could argue that Vanishing Act was the most important part of the entire plan.
Just check out this timeline. This wasn't a sudden ghosting. It was a slow, deliberate fade-out that took nearly a year. Satoshi methodically handed over control of the project to other trusted developers, making sure it could survive and thrive without him.
And then came this, the last known message from Satoshi, sent on April 23, 2011. It's so simple, so understated. I've moved on to other things. And just like that, he was gone.
And that right there is the whole point. By vanishing, by becoming a ghost in the machine, Satoshi gave Bitcoin its most powerful feature, genuine decentralization. With no leader, there's no single point of failure. No one to pressure, no one to corrupt, no one to arrest. The creator had to disappear so the creation could truly belong to everyone. So, we're left with one last big question to chew on. Was Bitcoin itself Satoshi's masterwork, or was the real stroke of genius the final act of disappearing, ensuring that his invention would forever be bigger than any one person?